The Toronto Maple Leafs have a big decision to make as one of the players on the Marlies is having an outstanding start to his season, and the question now comes, will they offer him a full-time contract? So we're going to break that down in this episode, as well as some major Leafs updates regarding the defense and a potential injury. So you're going to want to stay tuned for all that. But before we do get into it, a quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. About 80% of you guys who are watching right now are not subscribed. So if you aren't, scroll down as we're on the road to 6,000. All right, Darius, we have some interesting stuff to discuss today. The Leafs are playing well. They got a 7-0 win against Kyle Dubas and the Pittsburgh Penguins, but some more stuff has come out, and the Leafs seem to have a pretty big decision to make, and this is not a decision that I would expect to be as hard as it might be going forward for the Maple Leafs. And the player we're talking about is Kiefer Bellows. And yesterday, he scored another goal. He currently has 8 goals and 7 assists in 16 games while on a PTO with the Marlies. People all over Twitter, as you can see on the screen now, are saying he's earned himself a permanent contract, a full-time contract, as he has been great for the Marlies. Darius, this is a guy who haven't really been discussed too much because we've obviously been thinking about the World Juniors with Easton Cowan and Fraser Minton. What are your thoughts on Kiefer Bellows? Do you think they offer him a permanent contract? Do you think he has any role on the Maple Leafs going forward, whether that be this season or in the future?
I think at this point, you could look at giving him an actual offer. I was actually quite shocked to find out he is still on a PTO because I remember they signed him in the preseason to the PTO. But he's really come out of nowhere. I mean, he's a former first round pick of the New York Islanders. Hasn't really panned out, bounced around the AHL, he's played 95 NHL games, so he's been around, he's been in the league. But he kind of came out of nowhere. He's already 25, and he's only a point-a-game player this year with the Marlies. He's really showing out this year with the Marlies. So the fact that he hasn't got an actual offer yet tells me that they're probably at a contract limit, or they're trying to figure something out within the Marlies, because, the NHL and the AHL have these stupid contract rules, and you have to have a certain amount for each, and you can only have 50 in the organization, all that good stuff. But I think he's definitely played his way into earning a contract. The funny thing with the PTO is I'm pretty sure because he's signed to an AHL PTO, he can't actually be called up to the Leafs, and I think that's problematic because he's playing very well and he has NHL experience. One guy I would compare him to that the Leafs have kind of, reconstructed as well is Joseph Blandisi. And they're very similar. And Joseph Blandisi, kind of looked good in the preseason as well. He can be called up, I'm pretty sure. But Bellows can't. Bellows has more NHL experience than a guy like Blandisi. So I think you'd like to get him signed and kind of keep him around because it seems like he might be figuring it out finally at the AHL level. And with the Leafs with so many injuries and illness, especially this past week, I don't think you would mind bringing up a guy like that. He could chip in and help.
Yeah, like you said, all the injuries that are going down, we can take all the depth we can get. And looking at his stats, you mentioned it, over 90 NHL games, the majority of those with the Islanders. Last season for the Phantoms, like you said, he only put up 10 points in 12 games. This season in 16 games, he already has 8 goals, so he's found his goal stroke. He's finding a way to put it in the net. And this is his breakout, I can't say year because it's only been 16 games, but like you said, he's a 19th overall pick, only 25 years old. So if any of you out there thought he was old, he's not old yet. He's still fairly young, and it is good that the Leafs do have him, and I do suspect they do offer him a contract here soon, but he's now starting to figure it out, and if he can do this, and he's been doing this for a while, obviously the entire season, maybe the Leafs give him a chance next season. Maybe they, convert his contract to a permanent contract soon. But the fact that he's still in a PTO is quite surprising. And I think he's playing with a chip on his shoulder, playing with something to prove because he's bounced around now a couple of times with the Flyers last season. Obviously was drafted by the Islanders, played with the Phantoms in the AHL. Now with the Marlies, he maybe have figured it out. And if he's figured it out, I'm very glad he's on the Leafs to figure out his struggles early in his career.
Yeah, and like you said, it could be something that they kind of sit on till next year, maybe not this year, but he's playing with a chip on his shoulder, right? Like he wants to prove a lot of these teams wrong and that he is first round caliber of player. And he wants to get back into the NHL and kind of make a name for himself. And I think he can do that in this organization, especially in like a bottom 6 role, like on the 3rd or 4th line next year, right? If he can adjust to the NHL. But if he continues to play the way he's playing at the AHL, like a lot of people think it's not like the AHL is like a step down. It's hard to play in the AHL because guys are trying to feed their families. They're playing hard. Like the NHL, some guys have guaranteed spots. AHL, not the same. So it's hard to score in the AHL. And it looks like he's somewhat figured it out. If he can, translate that to the rest of the year, a full season, then maybe we could see him stick around and kind of maybe earn a spot on the Leafs next year. Who knows?
Yeah, and we've seen players that didn't start the season on the Leafs who have made a significant impact, particularly Benoit, who's been unbelievable. So
yes, sir.
Who knows if Bellows can be the next guy up, maybe not this year, but next season. Just an interesting topic to discuss as, I don't know, I suspect this won't be the last time we hear his name, but let's get into some major Leafs updates now, a couple of kind of rapid fire ones ahead of our game coming up. Now, Darius, I'm curious to see what you think about a couple of this. This is one from David Alter today at practice saying early indications are that the Leafs may shuffle up their D pairs. Stay tuned. Do you have any predictions on what this could mean, what it's about? As Brody also didn't stay in the ice too long, Riley paired with Benoit right now. Update from Keefe soon. Then something came out saying 16 minutes ago that the Leafs are hopeful Brody can recover over the course of the day to play in tomorrow's game. And if that happens, the team will likely deploy a new look on defense. What do you think this new look could entail? And are you a bit worried that they're employing a new look despite them have not lost in regulation in almost a month?
In quite some time, and they haven't lost in regulation often this year. I think they've only lost two
No,
games in
yeah,
regulation or something like that, which is crazy. Awesome. They've been playing awesome. But yeah, the tweet, I think as Leaf fans, you kind of just look at it with a negative kind of outlook and you're like, oh no, they're switching it up. It's a bad thing. Honestly, I think it's just that Brody's sick and he has the flu. I got whatever it's going around in Toronto and it's not fun. I would not be able to play an NHL game, not just because of the skill. But yeah, I think if you look at the lineup, Simone Benoit shifting down on daily faceoff. This could change before the game tomorrow night. So don't comment or anything. Don't. I'm not the coach. All right, it could change. But Simone Benoit, I wanted to say we've been talking about him on the channel. He has played great. Like at what point we're talking about? He's gonna move down or he's gonna regress. At what point is he just playing well? Right? And do we give him flowers? He's just playing amazing. They're all playing really well. William Lagesson, I really underrated this guy. Habs legend William Lagesson came in, and nobody expected anything out of him, and he's pushing guys around after the whistle. He's playing great. So whatever they decide to do, I think they're going to figure it out. They've been playing great despite the injuries and illnesses. Austin Matthews didn't even play on Saturday, and they won 7-0. Like that's absolutely fantastic. So it looks like Morgan Riley would play with Timothy Liljegren just because of left and a right-hand shot. As for the rest of the lineup, I think they can really mix it up. Everyone's playing physically and everyone's playing well. So it's really encouraging if you're a Leafs fan.
Yeah, and I've been on the Benoit train for a long time now, and I mentioned it in yesterday's video, and most of the commenters agreed. He's actually throwing people around in front of the net, something we've needed for a while, and you mentioned a very good point. I wonder how much of this good play by Lagesson and Benoit is making Brad Treliving not press the emergency button as soon regarding pulling a trigger for overpaying for a trade. We saw reports come out that Minton and Cowan are off limits in a trade, as the Flames requested one of those, if not both of them, in a trade for Tanev, which I don't think either of us would have liked them to do. And I think at this point, maybe Brad waits as long as he can. The Leafs are playing great. I'm not going to say they're playing great, but obviously there's some, they still need to address their issues. But if they can hold out, wait till they get fully healthy. We have Liljegren back now. Timmins is back. He's been back for a while. Maybe they just hold out on a trade. The biggest question mark now is obviously Joseph Wall, and hopefully Giordano can come back at some point. But I don't know. The Leafs are playing good, and I think guys like Benoit are holding it down enough to maybe even warrant them to stay on the team depending on what additions they make. Maybe they only make one addition now instead of two with the play of Lagesson and Benoit.
Yeah, and like I said, at what point, like you look at some of these guys as stopgaps, like Benoit, I know, like when he first started playing, I look at him like, okay, he can play 5-6 games or whatever. But at what point do you look at it and you're like, all right, they're playing well. Why do we need to make a trade? We haven't lost in regulation since October or whatever it is. It's insane, right? So at what point do you just look at the lineup and you go, I think we're all right until the trade deadline. We're playing well. There's no, need to mix anything up. Obviously, I think you still want to upgrade. I don't know if this defense can win a Stanley Cup. They are playing well. But at what point do you look at it and you're just like, all right, this is a good team. This is a good decor. Everyone's playing up to snuff and everyone's playing for each other. That's good. And one thing you mentioned as well that I wanted to touch on, Joseph Wall, when he does eventually come back, with the way the goaltenders are playing, especially Martin Jones, is Samsonov the odd man out now? That could be interesting as well. Do they look at, possibly trading? I know I'm just spicing it up for no reason, but do they look at trading Samsonov now, maybe free up a little bit of the salary, and then you run with a tandem of Wall and Jones because they're playing really well? I think that's interesting for the Leafs going forward as well. They can sweeten a deal somewhere if a team needs a goalie. But yeah, in terms of the defense, they're playing well. I don't know why you'd make a trade right now, especially around Christmas time. They might even hold off till the trade deadline.
Yeah, I think they do. And I mentioned that in yesterday's video as well. If Martin Jones continues to play like the way he's played, albeit he's only played 3 games, I think a 1.6 or something goal against average.
Yeah.
Samsonov has struggled the entire year. Maybe they move on from him. Luckily, one of the masterclass of Brad Treliving was on offering him an extension last season, and luckily we got out of that scot-free. But thank you guys for watching. That'll wrap it up. Let us know in the comment section what your thoughts are on all this, and let us know if you think Kiefer Bellows is going to make an impact, whether it be next season or onwards. But thank you guys for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.